See if they change that here now as we head into picks and bans. Trundle, the first ban away for the Splyce team.
And I want to see if Splyce will change anything in the pick and ban phase, because yesterday they ended up picking the Varus and had to risk the fact that Zed was open as a counter pick into it, and they didn't really have any answers to the split push, and they misplayed a lot of things in the early game as well. Opted into a lane swap, which then turned into standard lanes, but they didn't do a camp at level 1 and so on. And they fell behind just in every single lane, honestly, from the start. I like the Tahm Kench ban from Splyce because it was clearly an issue for them yesterday, so now to take it away this time around. And obviously Lulu gangplank from Elements, no surprise, and Rise. Basically the 3 standard bans. It does leave Lissandra open, which is a fantastic pickup.
It is a fantastic pick, that flexible pick that we have seen across regions. It will get locked in first, so we'll have to wonder if Wonder where, or Senkux will be the one taking it. And then it flips over to Element's side. What are they going to answer with?
They can go for Elise if they wanted for Gilius in the jungle here. A champion like Mundo we haven't seen a whole lot of. Again, he's a little bit too slow scaling. Poppy is open for the support role for Sprattle if he wants to take it. We know he's a fantastic Alistar player, which is what he's hovering right now. But it is very risky to also give Poppy over now to Splyce. It's deadly champions. Elements are potentially giving away. Nisbet played it yesterday. Can easily take it again together with Lucian, and you have great picks early on. You're also still hiding that Lissandra. You're not showing where it's going to end by just picking your bottom lane at the moment.
Yeah, very true. Although they may change their tune to that one with the Corki locked in, the Alistar. That could be the bot lane, of course, for Elements, but we have seen a possibility as a middle. Trashy will do a very quick Elise lock in, and, well, if you get some early game pressure out along with the Lucian, this could be a very quick start for the Splyce team.
Sure, I like this as well because we just talked about how Elements could have taken the Elise. Now with Kindred being banned, instead they opt for their bottom lane. High value on Corki for Mr. Rales. Very clearly, he picked it yesterday as well. And we know Sprattle is an Alistar player, or very focused on playing Alistar often. So Splyce saying we can save the Poppy. We don't have to pick it right now. We're expecting it to be support anyway. We can take Elise, make sure Gilius doesn't get it, take the Lucian for copy. You get great AD carry pickup, and overall, very solid start to the pick and ban phase for Splyce. Elements taking some chances, like gambling, taking 2 picks that you know are going to the bottom lane. Well, I guess technically Corki could go mid lane, but in this case, I'm expecting that to be the bottom lane for Elements.
One thing we didn't talk about as much, since it wasn't looked at, it was pick banned a little bit, but not a whole lot yesterday, is this Fiora pickup. Steve will be taking it this time around, and Gilius gets the Lee Sin lockup. So where do you expect the early pressure to be from Elements?
Good chance we're going to see Lissandra go top, and just quick. As we say it, they lock in the Zed, and that confirms Lissandra will go top. She has a good early matchup into Fiora. Can really push her down in lane. You can set up ganks fairly effectively. Have to be careful though, Fiora will outscale the Lissandra and become a massive split pushing threat if we get to that point. But Splyce obviously running in with a lot of early game power here. Early game jungler, obviously in the Elise. Strong 2v2 lane with Braum and Lucian. Zed for the early game. Lissandra is very strong laning phase as well. So Splyce are looking very good in the early stages of the game. Elements, they want to basically, I think you should take a wave clear mid laner and just wait for Fiora to start scaling and outscaling the Lissandra, and then say, you know what, now we have a split pusher that Splyce can't deal with. They need to get some wave clear though if they want to hold off, and they're doing that.
This is the answer. Locked in for Ica. We've got ourselves a victor. Now there's Zed on the side of Splyce, so all the eggs in the early mid game basket for Splyce. For Elements, if they can hold on, they might be able to climb their way to a victory. Splyce really needs this one too. If they can't beat this Elements squad though, that sends a message that they still are not experienced enough to take on these LCS teams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for both teams, I know we're only into day 2 basically, but
don't take away conclusions.
Beating these teams that are not expected to be the top 4 or 5 teams are so important when it comes to avoiding relegation. And that is obviously what both teams are looking at. So this matchup is honestly more important for both teams than when you're playing like Fnatic or Origin and so on and so on. Elements are taking much what I like to call an LCK composition at the moment. It's a comp we see very often over there, especially from the KT roster, where they like to do this with these wave clear AD carry, wave clear mid laner, and then scaling top laner. So you have that 1-4 setup later on in the game, and you just keep defending your turret for as long as possible while you wait for Fiora to scale up in towards the late game. Yeah. Will be some crazy fights later between Fiora and Zed, so that should be very interesting.
Yeah, well, you've heard from us. Why don't you guys tell us if you think Splyce will take their first win in the LCS with hashtag SPY win. Wow, I can't even do that today. At LOL Esports or EO win if you think Elements will come out on top today. As we get ready to load up onto the Rift, both these teams are looking to prove something. And one of them, unfortunately, is going to have to walk away with a loss. But the other one, well, if they do it convincingly enough, we might just see them be a competitor.
We will see. So very early on in the season, obviously for Splyce, probably were some nerves going on stage yesterday. A lot of young players, a lot of them first time in the LCS.
Just barely eligible.
Exactly, like 3 new members coming into the LCS, and then Trashy and Nisbet with some experience from before. And I talked quickly about this Elements lineup, or this composition they have, which is something we see in LCK. Another thing we see very often there is obviously these Siege compositions. We saw one in the last game from Giants. Definitely seems to shape in towards the meta right now. So Siege is very strong. These 1-4 setups with a strong split pusher and wave clear, defending these tier 1 towers, which are stronger than they were last year, also seems to be a very viable strategy, but you need to execute it properly.
Just like we criticized the Giants for last game, you need to be able to execute when you take a composition that can do it just like that. For Splyce's side, they've got to get the ball rolling real quick, though. And against a team like Elements, they might just be able to do it. But what angle do you hit? Do you try to shut the Fiora down early? Do you just completely forget about the mid lane since there's so much wave clear there? Do you go for early dives? What is the game plan?
For Splyce or Elements?
For Splyce.
For Splyce here, I mean, first of all, you have a ton of CC combined with Elise and Lissandra in top lane against Fiora. That is definitely one of your goals for Splyce, to shut down that lane here, shut down Steve. I feel like we've said it before, but that is a very strong lane for Splyce to gank in the early game. Another one is you can try and force a flash from Victor in the mid lane and therefore set up your Zed for success after level 6 and go for these kills. Your 2v2 bottom lanes would be very even for a long time. I would probably give it to Splyce, honestly, in the early game with Lucian Braum into Alistar Corki, but then after level 6 it becomes basically a farm lane.
Yeah.
So Splyce have some very good lanes they can play on. Zed does well into Victor in the early game. Honestly, every single lane for Splyce is very strong in the early game here, so they should be able to keep controlling all of them.
I suppose you got to question where Trashy's going to take this Elise early on. We saw last game Diamond Prox utilizing the AP build to get a lot of early pressure on, but if they start pushing the waves very quickly and trying to keep people back, it might be hard for him to do some ganks.
I just want to see Trashy control the top side of the map. To say, if I can't gank because my 2 soul laners are pushing, at least I'm here to counter gank if Gilius ever show up, because there's nothing worse for a jungler. So look at 3 lanes getting pushed in, and all 3 laners are basically saying, we could use a gank, we need a gank. And you don't even know where the enemy jungler is, because then whenever you show up, there's such a high chance you get counter ganked, because when you start pushing lanes, you can put wards deeper. That means you can spot the jungler earlier, and your jungler can move in position to be there and counter gank, and then suddenly you just get stuck in this terrible situation where you can't really gank because it's too risky, and your lanes are just slowly losing and getting pushed into their own turret over and over and over. And that's what Splyce are looking to do in the early game. Gilius is a great Lee Sin player though, so he should be able to have some early game impact. The question is, can the rest of his team help him?
We'll have to see indeed. The game is just starting to get underway. Everything's fairly standard here. Splyce is taking the incentive to try and push as fast as they can.
But look at this here. Look at Trashy now.
Immediately going into the enemy jungle.
Instantly into the enemy jungle on top side. Control on the top side of the map where your 2 solo laners are playing and pushing. You can take the Rift Scuttler now as well, and then suddenly it's almost impossible for Elements to gank this top lane. And that means Lissandra can now play super aggressive and always look to trade from range. Always look to trade into the Fiora, and you don't have to worry about the Lee Sin.
Senkux tries to get a little bit more damage onto this Victor, but Ica will be a tough nut to crack. As Steve trying to take the precautions. He is no stranger to having a lot of pressure in the top side. That is pretty much what he became known for last year on Roccat and on Elements. He's yet to define what kind of Steve we will be seeing this year.
And as we talked about, Pyro, first gank towards the top lane. Claw into Snare onto Fiora. Slow her afterwards, and then suddenly Elise can land this very easy cocoon. So it's important to Steve how he uses riposte. Where do you save it? If you know the gank is coming, you might have to save it all the way time for the cocoon, but that can be very difficult for him. W for Lissandra is instant, so that's hard to block for Steve. And he cannot waste it. That's the key one. Both junglers are seen here.
Trashy knows he's gonna find him, and he gets a lot of damage to start things off. Steve is trying to come to the rescue. Trashy dodges the Q, goes on in, And the ward hop from Gilius will mean he's safe under tower, but did not see that Elise in the brush.
And we talked about how Trashy, because his laners have been so strong, he can have control of the river, so he's there first. Gilius is the guy who has to run in and risk face checking. And this is what happens when you face check towards Elise. You take so much burst damage at first and you have to just back away. But Gilius, he has healed up a little bit. But he had a potion for himself and he's still sitting here. He's waiting for Trashy to go for a gank. He's just there to counter gank. Trashy is saying that it's too obvious, I'm not going to go for it. Decides to counter jungle instead.
So he's able to get some free Raptors. Doesn't decide to take the last one as he moves away. And right back on into it. So Gilius, knowing nothing was doing there, he backs off for the time being. Is Trashy interested in trying to repel over this one and go for a dive on Ica? I feel like it's a bit early for that.
I might try and cocoon over the wall. That's why he had to kill the small raptor. Otherwise, you normally want to leave it so the camp doesn't respawn. You obviously deny a bit more farming experience when enemy jungler.
Let's talk bot lane for a second. It really has been a fairly even affair down here, and since no jungle interventions happened, Gilius is actually making his way in the area. There is no Scuttle Crab completed, so he will be the one taking it.
So this is good knowledge from Elements. They saw Trashy on top side. They knew he's been up there for such a long time. That bot lane or bottom side of the map is normally unwarded at this point, except for maybe one ward just near the bottom lane. So at least he can get down and get a Rift Scout lane. He has an early defensive pink ward as well around the mid lane. So there's some control for Elements. And you always just play that game saying, okay, we haven't spotted Elise on any of the wards on the bottom side, so there's a higher chance she's on top side. And we try and use that in our calculation, saying like, where is Elise, where can we gank, where should we expect her to be? And obviously they haven't seen her in the river down here, so now they expect her to be on the top side to probably go for another Rift Scuttler near the Baron Pit.
Early jungles, and the lane's trying to predict where the jungles are going to be, but for the lanes themselves, and this Element squad, this is the one with the most question marks in the entire LCS. We talked about all these players, about how in their histories they have all of experience, but never really been a standout carry. And Elements as a team is going to have to find that identity. Who is going to step up and be that carry? They're testing things. It's a test run right now. Steve is enabled with this Fiora pick. Ica is enabled with this Victor pick. If they can step up and make a big play against Splyce here, they can make the statement that they do have carries indeed.
Gilius is here again. He's been farming really effectively. Hit level 6. Trashy only level 5 at this point. So both junglers going for gank in separate lanes.
Oh, quick flash. Traded there between the jungler and mid, and all of a sudden Gilius will get the kickback. Wonderware just narrowly escapes and doesn't get riposted. Split-second reaction and avoids the first blood.
So Wonderware didn't flash instantly as he saw the Lee Sin come in. He got kicked back, lost all his HP. Steve can now push it in, but TP is ready for Wonderware. So it's not all bad for him, but losing the flash is obviously annoying.
Didn't even let himself fully heal before he went back to lane there. Ica's flash also burned as he backed away, and he's walking back on in. So some summoner spells traded in this early game. Still no first blood as we approach the 8-minute mark.
But we've seen the expected jungle pathing, honestly. Trashy trying to control the top side, gank for his soul laners. Gilius trying to snowball Steve, the scaling top laner. The Fiora, they need to get going in order to win this game for Elements. He's been up there twice now. Nice second attempt. Managed to burn that summoner as well. Sadly, Steve did the same. So in the end, Elements used more flashes and didn't get a kill. They did, however, get a teleport. So they can make a play Elements on the bottom side of the map for Steve, where Wonderware won't be able to respond.
Yeah, so they have a momentary time where they do have this global pressure available. The question is Steve going to be able to have that impact? If he can get behind them, they need a deep ward in that lane on the bottom side if they want to make a play and to convert that into something else like a dragon or a tower.
And it needs to be a quick play. Quick TP in, get the kill, back away, because you know the Zed is going to leave the mid lane. Whenever you're losing pressure in your lane, you get pushed into your tower, and you always have to move later than the other mid laner, because you need to wait for the CS. You got to kill that CS, otherwise you fall behind in farm and experience. So Zed will be able to move first. If it's a prolonged fight in the lane, he will be there, and he will make an impact.
Ica secures his own blue buff, make sure he can keep pumping out the lasers. Down on the bottom side, they do have a ward in the second brush of Splyce. There is not one in the tri. Gilius is coming through. He does put one down himself, but Kabi and Nisbeth are well aware of the danger, and they back up under turret.
And you can make this play because you have that teleport for Steve. So you now force Splyce away. They know they're going to be in a disadvantage instantly. So this is purely from Elements first, forcing the summoner up top lane. then making the second play. It's always multiple steps. It's never just one play. So now, no TP means you have level 6 Alistar and Fiora who can join in, so you can threaten a dive that forces your team to back away. You get some damage on tower.
Yeah, they get even more. They also get some deeper wards there. You can see the one that was placed by Gilius, or rather by Sprattle, when they went a little bit further back to try and keep them away. Now Steve has the option, but Trashy and Wonderwear are both here. Wonder sends out the Claw, doesn't go in on it, but now they...
Elements have to all in on bot lane now, because you need to at least trade towers. You cannot sit here and just go for it. They're going for it, yeah.
Headbutt pull. Nisbeth is the one who's caught up. He throws the Unbreakable, but him and Kabi are already away. Gilius is here, just doing the Krug camps, and they will not get what they were looking for on that.
And this is where we see some issues for Elements. Yes, they will end up trading towers, so it's not all bad, but this was such a good opportunity to make a much better teleport play. Gilius was already there at first, but then he backed away. He started running back to his own jungle. Then realizing, oh, I've just shown myself on the bottom lane. Trashy's now top lane. I need to rush back to bot lane. And instead of it being a coordinated play, catching 2 guys on the tower, they're catching 2 guys already running away. And Alistar using his full combo, that's his entire CC gone. So easy for Splyce to just, honestly, just burn 1 flash and then that's it.
2 parts to that. Telegraph movement was quite obvious when Sprattle had gone in, but also very slow reaction time from Steve. You said he needed to teleport. He did about 3 seconds after that. If he had not gone all the way back to the brush, just gotten safely out of range of the Lissandra and the Elise, could have easily gone down there, but he took his time, and you can't take your time when you want to make big plays like that.
The problem is just the entire play was delayed. So again, you allowed Splyce to leave the tower. You want to catch him under that turret. So you have them stuck there. Once they start running, you can just go for tower. Nothing else, really. And therefore, you could even potentially have saved the TP from Steve and just put 3 guys into tower. Splyce would still have to run away from it. And in case they came back, then you teleport it in. Otherwise, you could at least save that summoner.
Yeah. Taking stock of where we are. 500 gold lead for Splyce, very slim. A tower apiece for these teams, but no first blood as we approach 12 minutes into the game. Trying to trade out a little bit of damage on towers where they can and play the pressure game, but no one's been able to get a full lockdown on the enemy team as 3 members of Splyce in the bottom side will trade for a turret, with Rallas in the top doing the same on his own.
This is what we see so often. Once the first towers die, people swap the lanes around, and now we just have the 2 mid towers alive. Obviously, again, the tier 1 towers being harder to take down, and this is where the wave clear really is going to kick in for Elements, because they need to be able to defend this mid tower. Problem is, the Victor's been losing the lane pretty badly, and the tower's already down to like 60% HP. Elements needs to keep this tower alive, otherwise the entire map just breaks open.
That can change things quite quickly. Trashy steps a little bit too far forward. Senkux, Kabi, Nisbeth all backing away as they were taking tower shots. Got a little bit too feisty. Try and push forward. Elements was there to respond. Gilius in the Splyce jungle will back away. Starts pinging for the Rift Herald, asking for some help here. See if they can sneak that one, as they have sufficient power to be able to do it.
Always looking at the builds, fairly standard across the board. Steve going for the fist here, stacking up obviously some HP. He's gonna get built into Titanic Hydra, then swap it over for the DPS one, for the lifesteal one. Just a better build path towards it, getting some more extra HP. And Elements will take a Rift Herald. They can honestly make a move mid lane now, because you got Corki there, you have your Victor, you have Rift Herald as well, but you need to get that buff into the mid lane then.
Right, this is a great time for them too. The Corki's just completed the Trinity Force. Rallas and Sprattle were there in the area, but they're not pushing. They're afraid of this Braum. They're afraid of the defense that they can bring. But there was a moment. Senkux was back. They could have gone for it. Instead, they looked to secure vision throughout the Splyce jungle and possibly set up for a dragon.
And Elements now need to make sure they never allow the Zed to just freely push down a lane when nothing is done against it. They could have sent a member top a minute ago to push out this wave, but it's been slowly building up for Splyce now. It's a big wave Senkux can take for himself and start pushing in. That suddenly gives Splyce control of the topside jungle now. You can see Trashy already at the Raptors. And Elements rushing for a dragon just loses them basically all map control. Yes, getting the first dragon buff is nice, but you don't want to sacrifice the map against a 1-3-1 setup. TP Lissandra and a Zed, because looking out the pressure towards this top tower, I like the response though from Elements, trying to get something on the bottom lane.
Yeah, they forced Wonderwear to back away, so thanks to Steve and Gilius, they have some damage on the bottom side tier 2, but it looks like it's just going to be a trade for Splyce here. That tower's already gone, but there's no defense for Elements, so it will in fact be a trade, despite the ability to siege that they did have here Already Splyce backing away to try and defend the inhibitor turret, and the same thing for Elements. They will back off. Still no kills. We're 14 and a half, almost 15 minutes into this game. It seems like these two teams are afraid to start a fight.
Well, keep in mind, Splyce wants to split push and Elements wants to scale up their Fiora, so none of the teams have necessarily looked for any fights. Splyce just got another tower on the top lane, so they're very happy with this open lane. Swap Zed down to the bottom side now. Go for another tier 2 tower. And you just keep copy in the mid lane on the Lucian to wave clear over and over and over, and you basically just stay even in mid. Because now you're just going to play side lanes if you're Splyce. You're not looking really to do anything else because of the wave clear from Elements.
They do have enough wave clear, at least for Rallis to be able to keep this pushback, so no one's committing fully here. Still very even in the gold game. Lissandra extended out far, is pinged out by Steve right now. It's only going to be a one-on-one if it happens. Ike is going to be able to back away from this one as they send Senkux up to the top on the side of Splyce to keep this pressure on. But as you said, split push game will continue for some time, and Elements will just try to keep pushing it back until they get their Fiora and their Victor in a power level.
And Steve sticking to the Satanic Hydra to get a bit more wave clear coming in, getting that extra AoE damage for it. And just going to try and constantly apply pressure by pushing in the lane. Problem is this Zed. Nobody can go one-on-one against him. IK is so far back. And that's also why I want to see Splyce swap the lanes around. Because you want to have the pressure where there's a tower to kill. That's going to be the bot lane with the tier 2. That's where you want to have your Zed. Because Wonderware is going to be the guy teleporting away from his lane anyway. Mid tower is now open because Elements had to send someone up to defend that. Going in!
Gilius gets a kickoff onto Kabi. They combo him up and they take him down, but a teleport is already coming in. 16.5-minute first blood. Trashy picks up Gilius. Senkux goes in on Rallis, but backs away. Back to the mid lane. Steve is still causing havoc, but he is surrounded by Splyce members. Spraddle, a big headbutt pulverize, and Steve picks up Wonderware. It's a 2-for-1 in the first fight of the game.
So in the end, Gilius managed to find and engage. Second time he jumps in, kicks someone back where the flash from Splyce comes after everything has happened. When you see the Lee Sin jump in, you should be quick enough to say, oh, he's about to kick me back. Rather flash there instantly because you had the side lane control. The only thing that could go wrong was Elements starting a fight in mid lane, just like we just saw.
And you can see the inexperience there. They thought they had a free push on. Elements reacted. Able to pick a kill. Excellent moves by Gilius to be able to secure it. And then it kind of turned into a bit of a bloodbath there. But let's take a look at how it all started once again. Here comes Gilius.
So you have the tower open here. Koppe has, in my opinion, enough time to realize that he's going to be the target and just flash before. But he goes down, and now the fight is so difficult for Splyce to win because they just lost the AD carry. Spraddle is very tanky with his ulti, and obviously Steve is coming in nicely from the side. Picks up another kill, so this is the response for Elements. They were looking like they were about to lose mid tower because they had to put Victor top to defend that big wave coming in. Instead, they get 2 kills.
So with that, they bring themselves up to a 1,500 gold lead, the most significant we've seen this game. It's 4 towers to 3. That little dragon stat's also helping out. Rallis has the package, but he's going to find Senkux, has to immediately use it to get out of town. Yamato watching very closely this game. It has been a rough start for the Splyce coach.
Swedish turtleneck.
Senkux kicked on in, dodges out, fancy footwork, but can he get away? As a turret falls, Kabi does manage to secure the mid. So Splyce does get something for all that, and Spraddle gets away as Senkux was prowling around.
He can recall and go down to his bottom lane now with Wonderware and clear the wave from Steve. So this mid tower, they've been hammering away on it. For a few minutes, they break it open now. Tier 2 tower and bottom lane should be next objective for Splyce while they keep control in mid. So if Elements ever send too many guys to defend side lanes, mid tower is open for Koppe to take. And Elements will just push further and further back. So even though they are heading gold, it never really feels like they are in control. It's always Splyce setting up the 1-3-1. They have the kill pressure in the side lane. Second Rift Herald. Last one was used to take bot lane tower, given over to Gilius who went bot lane. Making sure to get some damage by kicking that poor eye in the back.
Well, there's one thing I've learned from a lifetime of playing games is that a giant eye is usually a good weak spot.
Yes, in real life as well.
Yeah. And Elements recognizing that valuable lesson, they take the last second Rift Herald, the last minute Rift Herald, before Baron takes up residence in the pit. Another dragon will be available too, but since Elements are controlling more of the top side of the map. That shouldn't be something they're looking at the time being.
No, and now we see the swap from Splyce with the 2 solo laners. Put pressure on tier 2 bot lane. Steve is also swapping up top, so they have teleports on each side of the map for both teams. Wonderware is going to wait about a minute's time, and then Splyce can look to be very aggressive. For now, they just have to at least respect the fact that Steve can join a fight. And we saw Gilius engage perfectly before. One more of those, that's more kills for Elements, that's a tower, that's a dragon. And that's how Splyce can still lose the game. That's what we gotta look for. And that's another engage now.
Crashy's knocked on in. He's gonna rappel up forward, but his health bar is already gone as Rallis picks him up. Steve comes around the other side. Grand challenge is issued onto Kabi, and he doesn't stand a chance. Steve picks him up. Go, Steve! They get themselves a 2-0.
I feel like we just talked about it, how Wonderware didn't have teleport yet, so Splyce had to respect that and not go too far forward, because that gives Elements the chance to engage. And what happens? Spraffle comes in, played beautifully on this Alistar so far, sets up another fight, 2 kills for Elements at Dragon. They are still ahead in gold despite having almost no control of the map, because Splyce is overextending.
All it takes is one mistake. You could see Steve had the notion to just hop right over the pit, immediately dive onto Kabi, who had no chance to get involved in this game. He has had a rough game on this Lucian. They need to utilize Suncook's Zed better. He's split pushing around, but he's not been able to grab much out after the second tier turret because the defense from Elements has been too good. Steve is turning into a powerhouse now. He's got the 2-0, has the red buff, can just keep on running through, and I don't think Wonderware wants to take him on.
Might see an engage in mid though. TP as well if they can find a ward behind him. There are 2 wards on camps behind Elements. Wonderware was moving back in the lane to potentially do it. Realizing they couldn't find an opening though. And now, annoying as well, you don't have a teleport on your Zed, obviously, that would be weird. So if you put in bot lane now, you always risk the fact that Elements will get the Baron control. I still think you can play around that fairly effectively if you are Splyce. 4 members this early in the game to stop 5 guys from taking Baron is very, very easy. And then you have pressure on this tier 2 bot lane tower. It's been left alone for such a long time. And for the last 10 minutes, we haven't seen really anything happen up in his top lane, other than just minions getting pushed down over and over and over.
Yeah, Senkux has just never hit that ultra powerful Zed level. Obviously, you can say something gets fed, they can do whatever they want. But he hasn't been able to pick a kill this game. No one is really incredibly afraid of him outside of Ralles, I would say. So they can usually send and answer one champion with one champion, pressure-wise.
It feels to me like Splyce are trying to push in top lane because he can go all the way to the inhibitor and then force someone to go wave clear and then force a fight in mid lane. Instead of just pushing towards the tier 2 bot tower, which I think is a lot easier for him to do, and a lot better to pick that objective. Obviously, again, you gotta respect the Baron, so now they're forcing Steve back to take it. He has to teleport though, so this does nothing for Splyce, other than them trying to get a flank, but Steve can join at any time.
He has the teleport available. Wonderware does too, but he's already with the
Good engage though.
Steve.
Can I get Rallis or Ica down instantly?
Steve's going to go in for the teleport. Spraddle goes in, gets a big pulverizes. Wonderware is all in the back. Trashy is kicked again, repels up, tries to join the team again as Wonderware gets taken out by Rallis in the back of it all. And Steve chasing forward, another grand challenge, but he turns his attention to the Zed. Sencox kicked, knocked, staying alive. Finally a shutdown and gold in the pocket of the Zed. It's a 1-for-1 trade.
But again, Pyra here, it's Splyce constantly trying to walk into the mid lane and force a team fight with the Zed. That is exactly what Elements want you to do. They don't have really great answers for stopping 2 lanes pushing. They can only stop 1 with Steve, and that's it. But because Splyce constantly just group in mid lane and say, oh, let's just team fight against you, Elements are getting everything they want at this point, and they're 3,000 gold ahead, 5 kills.
They're utilizing this Fiora very well.
Steve is playing great.
Starting to answer some of those questions we had. Let's take a look at this flank again, because Sencox gets kicked by the Lee, and then all of a sudden...
Yeah, obviously just send back Steve to defend the wave. He can teleport in, and now your team fighting composition gets a team fight. Great for you. There was no real threat on the back line because Sencox took the long way around the mid lane, so when Wonderware went in, Sencox wasn't there. He joined in very late. And honestly, by kicking him away, they potentially lost the kill, but instead it's a 1-for-1. Elements are keeping the towers alive. They're keeping control around the Baron. They haven't had to go deal with any split push for the last few minutes because it's constantly on the lane where there's nothing to gain.
They're showing that the experience is helping them out. Each of these individual players have had some time at this high level of competition. We've said it before. Splyce, new team coming in, having some troubles adjusting to this level of play. And, you know, heard a little bit earlier, their owner, Marty Strenswell, was talking about how this team is aiming for playoffs. You've got to be able to shore up those weaknesses in a timely fashion before you can get to that point. It's very early in the split, but if they start off on 0-2, that is not the right foot.
No, it's so much about the morale of the team, obviously. Especially for these challenger teams coming in. We heard Trick talk about it earlier in one of the features. How important it is to start 2-0, just to confirm what you've been doing in scrims is the correct thing as well. And here's an engage!
Gilius goes in, looks for Kabi. Wow. All of a sudden, Elements collapse, pouncing on Splyce, and everyone is melting. Kabi, Senkux, Trashy, it's only Nisbeth and Wonderwear. They managed to take Ica and Raleigh down. A double kill to Ica at the end of it all. Wonder will melt, shut down by Steve, looking for the ace, but Nisbeth keeps on chugging. A 2-for-4 for Elements. They keep on pushing.
Another great engage here. I love the synergy between Gilius and Sprattle in this game here. Gilius goes in, kicks one back, then Sprattle comes in, knocks 2 or 3 guys up, and it sets up everything for Mr. Raleigh, Ica and Steve just to pick the targets they want. AoE damage is great. Ulti from Fiora to proc it very, very quickly, and constantly we're getting team fights. That's the way Element wants to win the game, and Splyce are not realizing this. And they're now made so many mistakes. We're 26 minutes in, and this game is just running away from them. And they honestly had great control early on. But just allowing Elements to play that composition.
Didn't use the early pressure, and it all starts with Gilius going right on in. Here he goes, jumps to the ward, flashes, kicks Kabi, and then the rest is history.
I mean, it's just great. All the way back with the kick, and then AC engage, and you have enough defensive tools to stay alive, except for poor Mr. Raleigh, who had to go down.
But he's not really the carry in this situation. You've got to worry about Steve, you've got to worry about Ica, and those two are dealing so much ridiculous damage right now that Splyce can't handle it.
When your team comes as Lissandra and Zed, you're diving the back line. That means your AD carry is often left fairly on his own against a very, very strong Fiora at this point. And there's nothing Kabi can do then, but he's also getting targeted by Gilius every single time.
But that's the big issue for him. He hasn't been able to get much done, and 0-3 and 3, 27 minutes into the game, you're Lucian, that's great, but you're pretty much useless at this point.
Yeah.
On the side of Elements, though, Ica is playing a great Victor, and there's one thing I've learned about playing Victor. At a certain point in the game, if you survive long enough, where you just hit all the buttons, and if you press them in the right order and in the right place on the map,
the right order doesn't even matter, Pyro. Just press all the buttons and hit something, and you do kill something.
Yeah, you don't really need the Konami code. That's a good point.
Another problem for Splyce as well is they're built for the 1-3-1. Static shift on Kabi to get the extra wave clear to keep the control in mid lane, so he has less damage overall in the team fight. Blade of the Ruined King for Senkux obviously, so he's stronger in the one-on-one, but it doesn't help him in this big team fight. So the team is built to 1-3-1, but they kept pushing in the wrong lane and then forced team fights. Or at least allow Elements to engage onto them and get team fights.
Elements have been taking it every single time. But also, go back to Raleigh too, because despite the fact that he gets targeted out every time, he's still only gone down once. He's still putting out a lot of damage, and he's a key part of this wave clear. So every component of this team is doing exactly what it needs to. Gilius, well, he didn't have the biggest early pressure. He's still able to start these fights with some really, really nice impact, even if he's cheating a bit with the flash.
Him and Sprattle together been starting the fights really well. Whenever there was the chance, they went for it. Either being Splyce running to them or Splyce being out of position, those two guys would go for it. Steve is teleporting in here.
Looking for a fight if he can get the right flank. Steve chucks into Senkux, issues the challenge. Raleigh, poor Raleigh, he's staying alive. This time, Sprattle taking all the damages. Wonderwear frozen tombs himself, but he won't be alive for long unless he can flash out of harm's way, that is. 1 for none so far. Only Senkux goes down, but Elements might be looking at Baron round 2.
Good flank, though, coming in from Steve and Raleigh. He picked up the big counter to a Zed and Lissandra with the QSS. Splyce might want to try and force something mid to stop Elements from doing Baron.
It's a game of chicken right now, and Elements might be pulling the trigger. Here they go, back onto Baron. 8,000 health to go. Will Splyce get there in time? Will they be able to stop them? They're down on one man. Ica stunned up for a second. The gravity field's out. Steve looks for Kabi, jumps in, but he's chunked low. He's shut down by Wonderwear. They have a chance here to Fischio if they can do it, but their base is already in shambles. Can they stop this in time? Senkux is back up now.
He got it. He's going to clear the wave here. So Element started the Baron.
Close one.
Instantly Splyce wrecked. They might be able to push mid lane as well. That was a good fight from Splyce. Finally, honestly, for this team, they managed to kite back and then get Steve down. Instead of diving the backline of Elements, they just said, who's the first target? Steve is there. Instantly kill him. Mid tower as well. Defend the Nexus turret. Took them 29 minutes. But Splyce now manage to at least stop the bleeding.
It's going to be a long ladder to climb up, but they do have a way to keep it going. Sencoc's able to clear these waves with relative ease. They need to make sure they stop it up on the top. Elements are going to look for picks and flanks, but they won't be able to find any just yet. However, Baron is still available to them. Splyce knows this. They've got to react quick. It started once again.
And they're running from base now. A lot of them are recalling. Wonderware does have teleport. I don't see any ward around the Baron though he can use, so he needs to run with the rest of the team. Steve is coming in now. Trashy can't steal this one. He's too low. He's going to die.
He's going to die just to the Chaos Storm right there. Ica will pick him up. The Baron's going very low. They should be able to smite it away. Chased outside. It's Gilius who secures it, but the fight is on. Kabi staying alive for now. Meanwhile, in the pit, Rowlett, Steve, Spraddle duking it out with Wonder and Nisbeth. Ica will manage to pick up the kill onto Kabi. A shutdown goes over to Steve as Sencox is trying to run through the team, but he's out of allies and he's out of time. He goes down. That's the ace. Elements with 3 are looking for the base.
You got the Baron, you got super minions still pushing in here on the top lane. They're going down 3 guys. And really Elements just forcing a Baron fight again. Splyce, they didn't get to recall in time, so they came in late. Members were low. Ica just stood outside the Baron pit and killed everyone who tried to walk in. And this is going to be game for Elements.
They've got no time left. Splyce just gets Trashy back up, but there's only a Nexus turret standing. It's already gone. 31.5. Elements pick up their first win over Splyce.